Everyone feared the man at the table. No one was watching him closely enough. Black Waitress saw the red dot on the Korean Mafia boss's chest, and she realized he was about to die. Serena Cole didn't react right away. That was the first thing that saved him. Her job had trained her not to flinch, not when men shouted, not when guards stared her down, not even when the room bent around power. She had learned that sudden movement was how people like her disappeared. So she did what she always did. She watched. Baek Do-hyun sat exactly where he always sat, back straight, suit jacket open, tattoos exposed like a warning no one dared question. His fork moved calmly, precisely, as if nothing in the world could rush him. That's when Serena saw it again. A faint red dot resting just above his heart. At first, her mind tried to explain it away. A reflection. A trick of the glassware. Light bouncing off a chandelier. But the dot didn't stay still. It rose when he inhaled. Fell when he exhaled. Serena's fingers tightened around the tray. Because reflections don't breathe. Around them, the restaurant kept living. Laughter drifted from a corner booth. A server brushed past her shoulder. Somewhere behind the walls, music hummed low and polite. No one else noticed. No one else was looking at the man closely enough to see that death had already chosen its spot. Serena's pulse climbed into her throat. If she was wrong, touching Baek Do-hyun would be the last thing she ever did. His guards didn't ask questions. They erased problems. And she was very good at not becoming one. But if she was right... She glanced toward the windows. Too dark, too reflective. Somewhere beyond the glass, someone patient was waiting for the moment Do-hyun leaned forward just enough. His fork lifted again. Serena didn't raise her voice. Didn't call for help. Didn't warn anyone. She stepped forward and broke the one rule she had survived by her entire life. She touched him. Baek Do-hyun was not supposed to be vulnerable in public. The restaurant was chosen for that reason. Private, controlled, expensive enough that fear did half the security's work. Every table within 10 feet of him stayed quiet. Conversations lowered themselves. Chairs shifted only when permitted. Even the staff moved differently around him, measured, careful, trained by consequence. Serena Cole had learned that rhythm quickly. You didn't look at him too long. You didn't move too fast. And you never touched him. She had followed those rules for months. Cleared plates without meeting his eyes, refreshed glasses without a sound, stepped back whenever his guards turned. Tonight should have been the same. Baek Do-hyun ate slowly, methodically, his open suit jacket revealing tattoos meant to remind the room who he was. He didn't rush meals. He didn't rush decisions. Men like him survived by never appearing hurried. That was why no one noticed what Serena did. Not the guards. Not the diners. Not even Baek Do-hyun himself. They were watching his hands. She was watching his chest. And in the space between one breath and the next, Serena understood something that made her stomach turn cold. Power hadn't made him safe. It had made him visible. You notice the danger before anyone else, just like Serena. Prove you have the sharp instincts of a survivor. Subscribe right now if you never miss a detail. Only the observant belong here. Serena Cole had learned the invisible rule long before she ever put on a waitress uniform. You survive by not being remembered. Not by customers. Not by managers. And especially not by men like the Korean Mafia boss, who owned the room without ever saying a word. In places like this, invisibility wasn't a weakness. It was armor. She moved the way shadows moved, quiet, efficient, never drawing attention. Plates appeared clean. Glasses refilled themselves. Chairs were adjusted before anyone realized they'd shifted. The guests noticed comfort, not the person providing it. That was how Serena stayed alive. Working nights in a luxury restaurant that catered to dangerous wealth meant understanding power without challenging it. The guards didn't smile. The staff didn't ask questions. And when Baek Do-hyun arrived, the air itself changed. The black waitress learned to feel it before she saw him. Conversations softened, laughter dulled, even the music seemed to lower its voice. Baek Do-hyun didn't demand silence, his presence enforced it. A Korean mafia boss didn't need to announce himself. Everyone already knew what he was capable of. Serena never looked at him directly for more than a second. That was another rule. Men like him didn't like curiosity. They mistook it for threat. So she watched everything else. She watched hands. She watched posture. She watched how guards positioned themselves when he sat, how they angled their bodies to shield him from entrances and exits. She memorized patterns without thinking about it, the way some people memorized prayers. Tonight, the pattern felt off. Baek Do-hyun sat comfortably, his open suit jacket revealing inked warnings across his chest, as relaxed as a man who believed nothing could reach him. His guards were alert but unhurried. The restaurant flowed around him the way it always did. Too smoothly. Serena told herself she was imagining it. Fatigue did that. Long shifts did that. A mind trained to notice danger sometimes invented it when there was none. Still, she slowed her steps. She approached his table with practiced calm, lowering a fresh napkin near his plate. She didn't meet his eyes. She didn't hesitate. She did exactly what the invisible rule demanded. And that was when she saw it again. A faint red dot, resting where no light belonged. Her breath caught, not visibly, not enough for anyone else to notice. She kept her face neutral, her posture relaxed, her hands steady. Because fear was dangerous. Fear got noticed. And Serena Cole had survived this long by making sure no one ever looked at her twice. But the red dot stayed. And for the first time since she started working here, the invisible rule didn't feel like protection. It felt like a death sentence, hers or his. And Serena understood something that made her pulse hammer behind her ribs. Tonight, staying unnoticed might kill the Korean mafia boss. And being seen might be the only thing that could save him. Most people would freeze in fear. Would you have the guts to save a dangerous man? Comment safe below if you are brave enough to break the rules. Baek Do-hyun did not need to raise his voice to be obeyed. The room adjusted itself to him the moment he sat down. Chairs shifted subtly farther away. Conversations bent into softer tones. Even the waitstaff moved with a different awareness, as if the air around his table carried weight. He was a Korean mafia boss, but nothing about him looked hurried or cruel in public. That was what unsettled people most. He ate like a man with time. His suit jacket hung open, unbothered, revealing the dark tattoos across his chest and along his neck, marks that weren't hidden because they didn't need to be. They weren't warnings meant to scare strangers. They were reminders for people who already knew. Serena had watched powerful men before, politicians, executives, men who mistook money for authority. Baek Do-hyun was different. Power didn't sit on him. It flowed from him. He didn't scan the room the way nervous men did. He didn't look for exits. He didn't rush meals or glance at his phone. His guards did that for him. His life had reached a level where danger came only from betrayal, never from strangers. That confidence was what made him vulnerable. From her position a few steps away, Serena could see how completely he trusted the structure around him. The placement of the guards, the height of the windows, the rhythm of the restaurant. Everything had been calculated long before he arrived. He lifted his glass calmly, unaware that the red dot on his chest pulsed faintly with his breathing. If Baek Do-hyun sensed danger, he gave no sign of it. That, too, was intentional. Men like him never showed fear first. Fear invited challenge. Fear created weakness. He had survived long enough to understand that appearances mattered more than instinct. Serena saw the contrast clearly now. The most feared man in the room was also the least alert. People watched his hands, his face, his guards. No one watched his chest. No one watched the space where death would arrive quietly, efficiently, without drama. Not until the black waitress noticed it. Baek Du-hyun cut into his food with precise movements, completely absorbed in the small ritual of control. Around him, diners pretended not to stare. Staff pretended not to feel the tension that followed him like a shadow. The Korean Mafia boss existed in his own gravity. And Serena understood why no one questioned it. Challenging a man like Baek Du-hyun meant consequences that outlived apologies. It meant disappearing from places like this. It meant becoming a lesson. That was why the room trusted he was untouchable. That was why the sniper had chosen him. And that was why Serena's fear deepened, not because she doubted what she was seeing, but because she now understood the true danger. If the shot came, no one would believe she saw it coming. They would believe the Korean Mafia boss was betrayed from within. And the black waitress standing closest to him would be the easiest story to erase. Serena tried to convince herself the red dot didn't belong to the moment. Her mind reached for harmless explanations first. Reflections happened in rooms like this, light bending off crystal glasses, polished cutlery catching chandeliers at the wrong angle. Expensive places were full of illusions. They were designed that way. She shifted slightly to the left. The dot stayed. She leaned forward just enough to adjust the edge of the tablecloth, her movement slow, controlled, invisible. The dot didn't slide across the fabric. It didn't flicker or scatter. It stayed centered on the Korean Mafia boss's chest, steady and deliberate, as if it had chosen that exact spot for a reason. Serena's pulse thudded hard once, then steadied. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. Panic made people sloppy. Panic got noticed. She watched Baek Du-hyun the way she watched everything dangerous, without starring. He was still calm, still methodical. His fork lifted, paused, and descended again. The tattoos across his chest shifted subtly with each breath, dark lines rising and falling beneath the open suit jacket. And that was when the red dot betrayed itself. It moved. Not across his body. With it. Up when he inhaled. Down when he exhaled. Serena felt the cold certainty settle in her stomach. Reflections didn't breathe. Her fingers tightened around the tray, knuckles whitening just enough that she had to force them to relax. The room felt suddenly louder, too loud. Every sound sharpened. The scrape of a chair, the murmur of conversation, the clink of ice in a glass somewhere behind her. Seconds were passing. Somewhere beyond the restaurant walls, someone patient was watching through a scope. Someone who had already calculated angles, distance, timing. Someone who knew exactly how long Baek Du-hyun would remain still. This wasn't chaos. This was an assassination. Serena scanned the room without moving her head. Windows, reflections, shadows between buildings across the street. The restaurant's glass stretched wide, offering the city a perfect view inside. The Korean Mafia boss trusted the height of the building. The security trusted the perimeter. Everyone trusted the fear his name carried. No one trusted the possibility that death could arrive this quietly. The red dot pulsed faintly, a calm, waiting presence. Serena's mouth went dry. If she stepped back now, she would be safe for a few more seconds. If she pretended not to see it, no one would ever blame her. She was just a black waitress doing her job, invisible by design. But the dot didn't disappear. It refused to explain itself away. It refused to be ignored. Baek Du-hyun shifted slightly in his chair, adjusting his posture. The red dot adjusted with him. Serena understood then that the story had already chosen its direction. The Korean Mafia boss was seconds before he was shot. And the anomaly wasn't the sniper. It was the fact that she had seen it in time. Serena didn't act yet. Understanding came before movement. She shifted her weight again, a fraction of an inch, pretending to smooth a crease in the tablecloth. Her eyes stayed low, trained on anything except the Korean Mafia boss's face. Watching him directly would draw attention. Watching the danger required discipline. The red dot held its place. Baek Do-hyun lifted his glass. The tattoos across his chest stretched subtly, skin tightening, then relaxing. The dot rose with emotion. Serena felt the last thread of doubt snap. Light didn't track breath. Reflections didn't anticipate movement. And coincidences didn't wait this patiently. This was deliberate. Her mind assembled the pieces faster than fear could catch up. Angle, distance. The way the dot stayed centered even as Do-hyun shifted his shoulders. Whoever was watching had practiced this. Whoever was aiming had done it before. A professional sniper. An assassination planned to look effortless. Serena's heart hammered, but her body stayed still. Years of being unseen had taught her control. Panic would make her obvious. Obvious would make her dead. She glanced just once toward the windows. The glass reflected the restaurant like a mirror, warm lights, quiet wealth, people pretending nothing dangerous ever happened in places this expensive. Beyond the reflection, the city dissolved into darkness. Buildings stacked like teeth, rooftops layered with shadow. Anywhere up there could hold a rifle. Anywhere up there could hold the end of Baek Do-hyun. The black waitress swallowed hard. If she stepped back now, the story would continue without her. The Korean Mafia boss would lean forward, maybe laugh, maybe take another bite. The red dot would hold steady. The trigger would be pulled. Everyone would scream after. Security would fire in every direction. Innocent people would run. And Serena would stand there, shaking, knowing she had seen the red dot seconds before he was shot. She would live with that. Or she wouldn't live at all. The dot shifted again, barely perceptible, adjusting as Baek Do-hyun reached for his knife. A microcorrection, a patient recalculation. Confirmation settled in her bones. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't intimidation. This was the final moment before violence. Serena felt time narrow, the way it did just before something irreversible happened. Sounds dulled. The restaurant seemed to recede, leaving only the man at the table and the quiet certainty hovering over his chest. Baek Do-hyun didn't sense it. Why would he? Men like him trusted layers of protection. They trusted fear. They trusted that death announced itself loudly. This one wouldn't. Serena understood now exactly what the red dot meant and what it demanded from her. If she moved, she would break every rule that had kept her alive. If she didn't, the Korean Mafia boss would die in front of her. The choice wasn't between safety and danger anymore. It was between being invisible and being the reason he survived seconds before he was shot. She is risking it all for a stranger. That is rare loyalty. Comment, I see IT. Serena stood perfectly still, balanced on the edge of a decision that had no safe version. Every instinct she had ever learned whispered the same command. Step back. Survival lived in distance. Survival lived in silence. Survival lived in pretending not to see what powerful men never wanted acknowledged. She had survived years by obeying that rule, by letting danger pass inches from her life without ever touching it. All she had to do was take one step away from the table. The Korean Mafia boss would finish his bite. The red dot would hold steady. The shot would come clean and fast, and Serena Cole would become just another black waitress in shock, another face in the background of a tragedy she was never meant to interrupt. No one would question her. No one would blame her. No one would remember her name. Her chest tightened at how easy that option felt. Baek Du-hyun shifted again, leaning forward slightly, angling his body the way men did when they relaxed too much. The red dot slid with him, precise and patient, settling closer to the center of his chest. Seconds before he was shot, Serena's gaze dropped to the floor, then lifted again, steadying herself. She could already hear the aftermath, the screams, the shouting in Korean, the guards firing into shadows they couldn't see. She could already see herself standing frozen, knowing she had seen the red dot first and done nothing. That knowledge would follow her longer than fear ever had. Her fingers curled slowly, nails biting into her palm. "Step in," another voice urged. Not louder. Not braver. Just closer. If she stepped in, everything changed. Touching Baek Du-hyun meant crossing an invisible boundary enforced by violence. It meant every guard's weapon would turn toward her before anyone asked why. It meant being mistaken for the threat she was trying to stop. It meant gambling her life against his. Serena exhaled carefully. She thought of all the times she had been unseen, all the times her presence didn't matter enough to be noticed, all the ways invisibility had kept her safe but small. This moment didn't care about safety. It demanded action. Baek Du-hyun raised his fork again, unaware that his confidence was the last thing keeping him in the sniper's sights. The red dot brightened almost imperceptibly, settling into its final position. The room leaned toward disaster. Serena moved before doubt could stop her. Not fast. Not frantic. Just decisive. She stepped forward into the space she was never meant to enter, her hand reaching out toward the Korean Mafia boss's jacket, her heart pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. In that instant, Serena Cole stopped being invisible. She became the woman who saw the red dot on his chest and chose to gamble everything seconds before he was shot. Serena's hand closed around Baek Du-hyun's jacket before anyone understood what was happening. The fabric was heavier than she expected, expensive, grounded, real. She didn't shout, didn't warn him, didn't call his name. She pulled. Hard. The Korean Mafia boss reacted on instinct, not understanding, his chair scraping back as Serena yanked him sideways, away from the exact spot the red dot had claimed. For a heartbeat, the room froze, confused by the impossible sight of a black waitress touching the most feared man in the restaurant. Then the silence shattered. A sharp crack split the air. Not loud enough to be chaos. Not soft enough to be mistaken. The shot tore through the space Baek Du-hyun had occupied seconds before, splintering glass and sending fragments skidding across the polished floor. A wineglass exploded. Someone screamed. Chairs toppled as diners dropped instinctively, hands over heads. Security moved all at once. Weapons cleared holsters. Bodies formed shields around Baek Du-hyun as he was dragged down and away, the calm mask finally gone from his face. Commands barked in Korean, sharp and absolute. Doors slammed. Lights flickered as someone hit a switch. Serena hit the ground hard. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs as hands grabbed her shoulders, forcing her flat against the floor. A knee pressed between her shoulder blades. Cold metal hovered near her head. Don't move. She didn't. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Her face pressed against the floor, eyes burning. She stared at the shattered glass inches from her cheek and tried to slow her breathing. Around her, chaos bloomed. More shots echoed from outside, wild now, angry, less precise. Security returned fire through reinforced windows. Alarms shrieked. People crawled. Someone cried for help. But Baek Du-hyun was alive. Serena knew it before she saw him. She felt it in the way the pressure on her back hesitated, in the way voices shifted tone, from rage to confusion to realization. Someone cursed softly. Someone else demanded answers. She grabbed him, a voice said. She pulled him back. Hands eased just slightly. Serena turned her head enough to see Baek Do-hyun behind a wall of bodies, his open jacket askew, tattoos streaked with spilled wine and glass dust. His eyes were locked on her, not with anger, not yet, but with something sharper. Recognition. He looked from her hand to his chest, to where the red dot had been. And for the first time since Serena saw the anomaly, she understood something else just as clearly. The interruption had worked. The black waitress had moved first. And the Korean Mafia boss was alive, because she had seen the red dot on his chest seconds before he was shot. She saved his life. You owe it to her to witness what happens next. Subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. Don't be a silent bystander. Time collapsed into fragments. Security flooded the space around Baek Do-hyun, bodies moving with drilled precision, weapons raised, eyes hunting for angles that no longer existed. Orders cut through the noise in sharp Korean commands, overlapping and urgent. Someone dragged a table on its side. Another guard kicked a chair away, clearing lines of fire. Outside, the sniper adjusted. Serena felt it before she understood it, the sudden tightening in the air, the way danger sharpened instead of retreating. The first shot had failed, but this wasn't panic. This was commitment. Whoever had aimed that red dot at the Korean Mafia boss hadn't come for intimidation. They had come to finish the job. Glass shattered again as a second round slammed into the restaurant facade, spider webbing across reinforced windows. People screamed and ducked lower. Plates crashed. The elegant calm of the room disintegrated into raw survival. Baek Do-hyun was hauled behind a thick marble column, his guards forming a living wall around him. His expression had changed now, no longer confusion, no longer calm. His eyes tracked movement, calculating, furious, alive. Serena lay pinned where she'd fallen, the floor cold against her cheek. A guard hovered over her, gun trained, waiting for the order that would decide whether she was a threat or an asset. Her wrists trembled, but she kept them visible. Still, non-threatening. Invisible again, only this time by force. Another shot rang out. Closer. The sniper was repositioning, abandoning patience for certainty. The rhythm of the attack changed, faster, less surgical. Time compressed into short, brutal beats, breath, impact, echo. Security returned fire, muzzle flashes lighting the room in harsh bursts. Bullets tore through curtains and Dacre, shredding the illusion of safety this place had been built on. The Korean Mafia boss's empire was being tested in public, and it did not like that. Serena's mind raced, fast and focused. The red dot was gone now, but she could still see it in her memory, bright against skin. She understood the pattern. The shooter wouldn't stop until Baek Do-hyun was down or completely unreachable. Someone shouted that the rooftop across the street had gone dark. Another voice yelled that a second position was possible. The sniper had planned for chaos. Baek Do-hyun glanced once more toward Serena, his gaze cutting through the confusion. He didn't thank her. He didn't nod. But his eyes lingered, sharp and assessing, as if replaying the moment she had grabbed him seconds before he was shot. The weight of that look settled heavy in her chest. More shots, then sirens in the distance, growing louder, threading through the chaos like a countdown. The sniper fired again, wild now, desperate, and then stopped. Silence followed, sudden and disorienting. Not peace, just the absence of gunfire. Security didn't relax, neither did Baek Do-hyun. The danger wasn't over, it had simply retreated into shadow, but one truth had already locked itself into place. The black waitress had seen the red dot. She had moved first. And in those compressed seconds of chaos, the Korean Mafia boss had survived an assassination meant to end him in public. Nothing about the night would return to normal. Especially not Serena Cole. The noise faded slowly, like a storm moving away rather than ending. Sirens wailed somewhere beyond the building, close enough to remind everyone that the outside world still existed. Security kept their weapons raised, scanning shadows that no longer moved, eyes sharp with the understanding that danger didn't always announce when it was gone. The restaurant looked nothing like it had minutes earlier. Glass covered the floor, tables lay overturned. The polished calm had been ripped open, exposing fear underneath expensive surfaces. Diners huddled where they'd fallen, whispering in shaken voices, afraid to stand without permission. Baek Do-hyun remained behind cover, flanked by guards who hadn't lowered their guns. His suit jacket hung crooked now, wine staining the tattoos on his chest. The place where the red dot had rested was bare again, just skin, just breath, but the memory of it lingered like a phantom ache. Seconds before he was shot, the realization settled deeper now, heavier than the adrenaline. If the black waitress hadn't moved when she did, this room would already be telling a different story. Serena sat where security had left her, knees drawn close, palms resting open on the floor. Her body still trembled, though the danger had passed. The instinct to disappear pressed hard against her ribs, urging her to fold back into the background where consequences couldn't find her. But the room wouldn't let her. Eyes drifted toward her in quiet waves, guards, staff, shaken guests. No one spoke her name, no one knew it yet, but they all knew what she had done. She had broken the invisible rule. Baek Do-hyun stood slowly, adjusting his jacket with controlled movements. His presence still bent the space around him, but something had shifted. The effortless dominance carried a fracture now, thin but undeniable. He walked toward Serena. Every step tightened her chest. This was the moment after survival, the moment where debts were calculated, where mistakes were punished, where witnesses became liabilities. He stopped a few feet from her. Up close, the Korean Mafia boss looked exactly as powerful as his reputation promised. Calm restored. Voice steady when he finally spoke. "You saw it," he said. It wasn't a question. Serena lifted her gaze just enough to meet his eyes. Her voice came out quiet but clear. "Yes." The red dot. "Yes." A pause stretched between them. The room held its breath again, waiting to see what kind of man Baek Do-hyun would be after nearly dying in public. He glanced once at his chest, then back at her. "You moved before anyone else," he said. Serena swallowed. "I didn't have time not to." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded, not in gratitude, not in apology, but in acknowledgement. The danger had passed. The assassination had failed. But the room and Serena Cole would never return to what they were before the black waitress saw the red dot on the Korean Mafia boss's chest seconds before he was shot. The noise faded slowly, like a storm moving away rather than ending. Sirens wailed somewhere beyond the building, close enough to remind everyone that the outside world still existed. Security kept their weapons raised, scanning shadows that no longer moved, eyes sharp with the understanding that danger didn't always announce when it was gone. The restaurant looked nothing like it had minutes earlier. Glass covered the floor, tables lay overturned. The polished calm had been ripped open, exposing fear underneath expensive surfaces. Diners huddled where they'd fallen, whispering in shaken voices, afraid to stand without permission. Baek Do-hyun remained behind cover, flanked by guards who hadn't lowered their guns. His suit jacket hung crooked now, wine staining the tattoos on his chest. The place where the red dot had rested was bare again, just skin, just breath, but the memory of it lingered like a phantom ache. Seconds before he was shot, the realization settled deeper now, heavier than the adrenaline. If the black waitress hadn't moved when she did, this room would already be telling a different story. Serena sat where security had left her, knees drawn close, palms resting open on the floor. Her body still trembled, though the danger had passed. The instinct to disappear pressed hard against her ribs, urging her to fold back into the background where consequences couldn't find her. But the room wouldn't let her. Eyes drifted toward her in quiet waves, guards, staff, shaken guests. No one spoke her name. No one knew it yet, but they all knew what she had done. She had broken the invisible rule. Baek Du-hyun stood slowly, adjusting his jacket with controlled movements. His presence still bent the space around him, but something had shifted. The effortless dominance carried a fracture now, thin but undeniable. He walked toward Serena. Every step tightened her chest. This was the moment after survival, the moment where debts were calculated, where mistakes were punished, where witnesses became liabilities. He stopped a few feet from her. Up close, the Korean Mafia boss looked exactly as powerful as his reputation promised. Calm restored, voice steady when he finally spoke. "You saw it," he said. It wasn't a question. Serena lifted her gaze just enough to meet his eyes. Her voice came out quiet but clear. "Yes." The red dot. "Yes." A pause stretched between them. The room held its breath again, waiting to see what kind of man Baek Du-hyun would be after nearly dying in public. He glanced once at his chest, then back at her. "You moved before anyone else," he said. Serena swallowed. "I didn't have time not to." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded, not in gratitude, not in apology, but in acknowledgement. The danger had passed. The assassination had failed. But the room and Serena Cole would never return to what they were before the Black Waitress saw the red dot on the Korean Mafia boss's chest seconds before he was shot. He owes her a life debt. The obsession begins now. Share this with your dark romance bestie. Don't keep this secret. Click the next video to see how he repays her.